also attempting to develop a multicolor kit for human Th9 cells, which are not real well defined and it's a little tricky to do. You'll see what I mean when he shows his data.
Okay, so yeah, I'm a Louisiana boy. I traveled to Mississippi for the summer to get better weather, to say the least. What I did my project on this summer was the Th9 multicolor kit development and a detection of phosphorylated proteins using intracellular flow cytometry. So what I'm going to do is there we go. Okay. So just now, I'm real quick. So I want to go over a brief summary of what flow cytometry is. Then I'm going to go into my two projects. The first part being phosphoantibodies, and the second part being Th9 multicolor kit development. And then we're going to go into like what you can kind of do with those things. So what is flow cytometry? So what flow cytometry is, it's a way of detecting cellular markers using antibodies. So kind of like what Jake's been kind of hinted at earlier, is that these antibodies have what's called a variable region and a constant region. And what happens is this variable region can attach to certain cell markers that are either within a cell or on the outside of cells. And you can use this constant region right here to attach what's called a fluorophore to these antibodies. And what a fluorophore is it's a protein that can like act as a signal to detect the different these different markers and the expression of these markers. So when you have these antibodies bound, you can detect these things using a special machine called a flow cytometer. So what a flow cytometer is that so you have your antibodies right here, okay? The antibodies then bind to your cells that you want to detect if this cell marker is on or not. And then you send it up through this SIP right here, and it goes into this machine and gets hit with a laser. And that laser then strikes the cells, strike these fluorophores, and you can actually, and it goes through a series of very complicated electronics and sensors and stuff. But eventually, you can actually detect the expression of the protein based off of the information you get from this machine in these two forms of graphs. So the two forms of graph is what's called a histogram and then a dot plot. So the histogram is a little bit more easy to understand, so we're going to go over that one real quick. So what happens is that because this signal right here in blue is closer to 0, that means you don't have as high of expression that you have, and so you have almost no. So you can interpret that as having none of the expressed markers on the cell. But when you have the fluorophore attached to the antibody, which is attached to the protein, you have expression of this protein. You get a shift upfield to more to the right, and you can see a positive kind of a group come from your sample. And so that's what it is. So what you can do is you can actually draw a line right here and say anything to the left of that is your negative population, not going to have the marker. Anything to the right of that is going to have the marker. So that's what a histogram is. What a dot plot is right here is that you can think of it as having two separate histograms on two different markers. So you can actually read two markers on the same cells at the same time. And so what happens is if you take a slice of this histogram right here and you plot it out on this Cartesian plane, you take a slice of this one up here and plot it out here, you're going to get a single dot at that intersection point, right? And so at that intersection point, you have a whole bunch of cells kind of acting in the same way, and you get what's called a population of cells. And so where your line is that you drew can tell you the expression of the different two markers. So if you're in the upper right corner right here, you have expression of both markers, right? And if you're in that bottom left corner, you have expression of none, because both of those are closer to the 0 that we have in that negative population. So that's how you kind of read these graphs. Oh, man. There you go. All right, we're good. So what I did was, the first project that I actually did was was use this kind of flow cytometry on phosphorylation. This is what I was kind of hired for the summer internship. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to read the phosphorylation state of these proteins. So I know a lot of the interns kind of already hit on phosphorylation, but what it is simply is that there's certain proteins that are in inactive form to begin with, but once you put what's called a phosphate group on it, then you can activate it. And depending on whether or not these proteins are phosphorylated or not tells you whether or not they're active, and kind of gives you the conditions of the cell. So we wanted to see, so we got a list of antibodies from monoclonal, and that either passed for Westerns and or IHC, so immunohistochemistry. I saw a picture with, I forgot who it was that showed that. But so we got a list of those, and then we just wanted to see if we can apply those same antibodies to flow cytometry. And so we had a little bit of troubleshooting that we had to do, but I eventually tested these 6 right here, and did replicates of those. And what we found that some of them worked and some of them didn't. So all of the ones that I could get to even start testing on were serum starved cells, but the ones that worked were C-Jun, MSK1, RSK1, and HRL, and these are the phosphorylation sites that the phosphorylation occurs on. And then we had a couple that actually didn't work at all. And so what you see is a very typical histogram plot of these cells. And so you have your unstimulated or your basal level expression in the blue right here, and then you have your stimulated version, the ones that we activated, the ones that should be phosphorylated in your green. And as you can see, there is a shift from the blue to the green from that stimulation. And so we have, looks like, a successful antibody. And there were various degrees. So 2 of these kind of had very, very small shifts, but like this HRALA had a very, very large shift. And you can actually see C-Jun, it's right there. So we had some good stuff here, but I walked up to to Chris like halfway through, and I was like, hey, so I have to give a presentation on this stuff, and I don't want to be like just the boring kid up in the front. And so she gave me another project to work on that has a little bit more of like some interesting stuff behind it. So this next part is going to be on the development of a multicolor kit. So what the multicolor kit does is that it allows you to detect very specific cells. And so we did ours on the Th9 cell. So what T helper cells do is they're kind of the pivotal cell of the adaptive immunity. And so they kind of control humoral and cell-mediated immune responses. But there are several different types of Th cells. So we got Th1s, Th2s, Th9s, 17s, and Tregs. And they all do different things. They all regulate the immune system in different ways. And by the release of these cytokines that they do. So all of these are different. But what we want to do is we wanted to specifically look at this Th9 cell. And so the Th9 cell is very important in your immune system, but it's important to note that we don't know a lot of stuff about it, and there's still a lot of research that needs to be done on it. But its major use in the immune system is to secrete IL-9. But it is also important to note that it's not the only cell that can release IL-9. So a couple things that it does, it can reduce parasite infections through the use of IL-9. It can inhibit solid tumors, things like melanomas and stuff. But it does, so those are both like pretty good things that it does, but it does have its negative side effects as well. So it can increase the effects of inflammatory bowel disease, so things like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. It does contribute to the progression of multiple sclerosis, and it can contribute to allergic responses, things like asthma and like when you have dust mites and stuff. So a lot to still, but we haven't fleshed out everything that this Th9 cell can do, or whether or not it is the IL-9 from the Th9 cell or not. So a lot of research that can still be done, and so developing a kit that can identify this Th9 cell producing this IL-9 would be really cool if we can get that out there. So we started doing research on that. But so this is a a schematic diagram of the signaling that can occur within the cell. So you've got your cell markers on the outside, you have some intracellular transcription factors that we've had. So I went through the literature, saw the ones that popped up the most frequently a lot of the times, and we settled in on these cell markers. So we got TGF-beta receptors, P1, GATA3, IRF4, BATS, CD4, and then some STAT5. And so I got the antibodies for those and went ahead and started testing to see if they just kind of work more than anything. And so I took some cells, did a control group on PMCs, which is just immune cells, polymorphic. Peripheral blood mononucleocytes. Yeah, that's right. So just on PMCs, and then we compared that control group to the Th9 polarization that you can see right here. This is how we polarize our Th9 cells. So this is just getting our Th9 cells. And so we compared the two groups together, and as you can see, I got lucky and they all kind of worked. So we have a shift all here that you go from red, which is the naive which is just the PMCs, to it's shifting up to the blue kind of condition. And they so all these kind of work, and then so that's those four, and then these four as well. I mean these three as well. And so what we went ahead is that we wanted to get a kit that has all different colors. And so we got different colors different fluorophores for all of these, and we actually made kind of a starter kit about where this project can go. And so we tested these again, and we still got some good results. However, a couple of them did kind of act up, and so something like this GATA3, there wasn't a huge shift like we saw in the preliminary experiments. But again, everything else kind of shifted up a little bit. So it's cool to get this kind of kit off the ground, but there's still a lot that can be done for both projects. So here we have the phosphoantibodies. What we have to do there is that all of those were unconjugated, so I had to use a second antibody that actually had the fluorophore to do it. And so getting those conjugated and then testing the rest of the lots that we can get from monoclonal can be some future stuff we can do with that project. And then for the Th9 multicolor kit, some of the expression of some of the receptors, the markers that we were testing, had very high expression. And so what we want to do is we want to compare them to other things that can produce IL-9, something like a Th2 cell, and make sure that we're specific for those antibodies for those markers. And then there just has to be some optimization that occurs. And then what we want to do eventually is give the option to change the fluorophore color. Because if a researcher is doing a research project and then they are doing like a specific fluorophore already, they're already using, and then we have it at the kit already, you can't overlap fluorophores using two different markers, or you can't, and it won't work. So having to change fluorophores would be a cool option for not only this kit, but all kits that kind of develop. But so doing that would be a really cool thing. But yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing here. So is there any questions on that? Okay. Cool. So I just want to thank everyone here, Biotech, for everyone in the lab, the interns, Allie, and everyone in HR, and especially Chris. She was a huge role model and like what I really want to hopefully aspire to be one day. And her work ethic really showed me, taught me a lot. So thank everyone for all your efforts.